Welcome to the Lady Landlords podcast, where we empower women to gain financial independence through real estate investing. I'm your host, Becky Nova, founder of Lady Landlords. If you're ready to buy, manage, and grow your real estate portfolio, then let's get started.
Is one of your biggest fears in real estate when things just don't go right? If so, you're going to want to listen to today's episode of the Lady Landlords podcast. I'm going to give you guys a bit of a life update of all of the things that have been happening in real estate for us within our own portfolio over the past few months, and just give you the couple tips of what I've been doing to help make sure that things stay on the best track that they can from a timeline perspective, a financial perspective, and a stress perspective. So thank you for joining me. My name is Becky Nova, and I'm the founder of Lady Landlords. And my husband Emilio and I have had a lot of things happening this summer in real estate investing. And honestly, it's been a little stressful over here. And I get that. And that's just a part of the game within real estate, within investing, within taking risks. So I'm going to give you guys a little bit of an update on some of the projects that we have going on and where those things look like. And then also I'm going to share with you the things that I'm doing to, one, keep sane, and two, make sure that we are doing the best we can to stay on point with the construction projects, the rehab projects, the tenants, and all the finances that go along with it, because that is the life of a landlord. So first thing to start with there is that my husband and I are actually in the process of moving ourselves, okay? Within that, this is a big deal for us. We are leaving one of the rental properties that we have been in for many years and are leaving a house hack where we have been living in a duplex where we live in one side and rent out the other floor. And we are actually moving into a new single family home. The reason for that is because I am currently pregnant with our very first child, who is due later down this fall. And part of me is very happy that we decided to take on this move during this time and before baby gets here. And the other half of me, not so sure that that was something that I wanted to do. 2025 has been absolutely filled with a lot of very interesting things popping up within real estate. And actually, I'm going to take that back. I'm not even going to say 2025. I'm going to even say just the past 2 months. And I've shared a little bit about that on some of our past episodes within this summer of what's been happening. So kind of want to catch you up on some of the different projects. And then, like I said, my goal is to share with you what's been keeping me sane, because these times will happen. I've noticed now in the 6, almost 7 years that I've been investing in real estate, that there tends to be very much an ebb and flow of how this business goes. There are some times when things are just nice and quiet. You're not getting calls from tenants. There's no maintenance things to take care of, and things are just kind of running smoothly. And then all of a sudden that just completely changes. Things will just pop up. Things really are starting to kind of come up and really need to be handled. And for some reason, they all happen at the same time. So kind of noticed, my husband and I did a little bit of a recap meeting this week, and we're talking about how really since July, so the past 6-7 weeks now, has just been one of the busiest times in our portfolio. Now listen, our portfolio was clearly much larger. We just closed on our 17th property. We have multiple sets of tenants and multiple different sets of locations. There's going to be other things, right? We are very big proponents of making sure to systemize things, making sure that we have automations in place to really be able to minimize what that looks like. And I got to say, I am so happy I did that. And the reason for that is because the most amount of things can continue to run smoothly. And that gives me bandwidth to focus on the things that are not, okay? So around July 4th, my husband and I were able to close on our new single family home. The biggest downside to that new home that we were going to be moving into was, unfortunately, it just needed some work. Nothing crazy. It was not a full gut rehab, but it definitely needed some cosmetic work. And unfortunately, not just painting, but also flooring. One of the floors of the house was already hardwood floor, but unfortunately, a lot of the wood had been damaged from the seller's dogs. And then there was the second floor, which had carpeting on it, and we wanted to rip those up. One, we would have had to clean the carpets or replace the carpets anyways. So we decided, let's just do things right in our eyes and install the hardwood floor the way that we see. With those items, though, we unfortunately were not able to move into the house. So we were still living in our house hack at that time, perfectly fine. Our house hack is actually closer to most of our other rentals, so it was still convenient to be able to do that. So we started we started the renovation. Since this house that I am sitting in, if you are watching me in YouTube or wherever you're listening to me speak from, but with that, it is in a different area than where we've normally been before. So that also talked about coming up with a new team, using different types of contractors that we're not typically accustomed to as we have in our other areas. What was fortunate was we were able to get somebody that we knew through other referrals that would travel to that location. But unfortunately, that has also played with some of the implications of this project. I talked all about how to work with contractors a few weeks ago on the Lady Landlords podcast. So feel free to go back and take a listen to that episode if you want to get caught up there. And if you're planning on doing any rehabs on your own, that's definitely the space that you want to be able to look. Otherwise, what we found important was to get that project started. We knew it was probably going to take us a month or two to be able to even move into the property. So making sure that we can get that project started was incredibly important. Now, since we've done multiple rehabs before, there are certain pieces that we were able to take on from that perspective. It was really nice. I felt like we were able to negotiate a little bit of a different payment schedule with our contractor. We were also able to save ourselves quite a bit of money by purchasing materials ourselves, since that's something that we have experience with. I was talking with one of our members of the Inner Circle yesterday, and I said that one of the best things that have come out of this is that for now, this home that we get to live in, that's really being paid for by our other rentals, one of my favorite parts about that is instead of paying a markup fee because either I didn't know what things cost or because I needed the contractors to purchase those products or to even pick them out or to then transport them, but I was able to save a ton of money with that, which then allowed me to do other things in the home that I really wanted to be able to do. And now I had that financial bandwidth. So I was really happy that that saved me thousands of dollars that then I was able to put towards some of those upgrades instead of having to pay really for those service fees or those convenience fees. That made a big difference. It really made me happy. So we started that. We started that process of that rehab in July. Now, as that was going on, we also, in that space, ended up getting a phone call from one of our tenants. And they had mentioned that they were having an issue with their hot water. Cool. Not a problem with that. We've replaced multiple water heaters over the years. So simple enough to be able to get. Easy. So we were able to have that water heater replaced. Thought there was nothing kind of like of it besides, once again, just another thing kind of on our plate at that point in time. But we were able to move on. But a couple of days later, that same tenant called and said in that multifamily property, in one of the hallways, that they smelled gas. I take that incredibly serious. Tenant called the utility company. They sent somebody out. They went down, they looked, and they said, hey, you know what? Not a problem with the water heater. Not a problem with that. But there's actually an overflow in the chimney where your ventilation system from the mechanical room out the chimney is actually not functioning the way that we would like to see it. So they cut off the service for gas. Okay. So that meant stoves. That meant water heaters. That made a huge impact on those three sets of those tenants. We needed to get that work fixed ASAP. We needed to have a licensed plumber come out to fix what the ventilation issue was, and then they actually have to file a report with the utility company to ensure that that work was done in order to get that service turned back on. We also got this really scary letter that was like, hey, if this is not fixed in a certain period of time, that's it. They were going to move on and not open our account again. So we need to get moving on this. And we also wanted our tenants to be able to have cooking gas and to be able to have hot water, of course. We got a licensed plumber out that very same day. And they said, hey, it's actually not us that you need. You need a chimney specialist. So we called a ton of different chimney specialists. We're able to get somebody out there. I made a post all about my interviewing chimney specialists in Lady Landlords, as that was a very interesting experience, to say the least. So feel free to go look for that post in our Lady Landlords Facebook community. But once we got the chimney specialist out there, we hired them. Now all of a sudden we realized that was going to be a bill that was going to be about $5,000 on top of all of these other projects we had. So not exactly thrilling for us. But That's why it's important to have your emergency fund and to have those reserves there. As the chimney people started to do the work that we agreed to solve this ventilation issue, the very next day, we were incredibly grateful to get somebody that was going to come out that quickly. When they started to do the work, they actually found out, since this house, this 3-family house in Westchester, New York, was attached to another owner's house next door that is also a multifamily house, they found out that at some point in time, the neighbors had broken through a wall and attached their utility system to our chimney, which is what caused the overload. So now, instead of the chimney that was supposed to be supporting the three water heaters, the boiler, those types of items, it also was taking on all of the fumes of also then the neighbor's multifamily, and it was just too much and not properly structured. But like I said, we have to get this back on for our tenants. We need to make sure to take care of them and keep them happy. And also, we wanted to make sure that this building was not going to catch fire or explode. So because of that, we actually ended up having to spend about $10,000 to have another chimney added to our property, okay? We're doing this over the weekend. I can't get in touch with the other owner to figure out what happened. We felt pretty confident based on just the aging of the work that it was probably not the person that owned the house at that point in time that was the one that had kind of broken through the wall. But it was definitely something that had happened, and we needed to figure out why, and we needed to figure out when. So that's now the second problem that we've taken on. It was then all of this different documentation, paperwork, everything like that, still with the utility company to get it approved, to make sure what the plumber submitted, to make sure what the chimney guy submitted. Now I'm actually in communication with the owner of the property next door, who I have to say that has turned out better than I could have ever imagined, with the owner next door really being one understanding of what had happened and the responsibilities that he would have from a cost perspective, since we were the ones that had to pay to add an extra chimney to support his utility issue. And he was also incredibly grateful that we just did not have the utility company go over and cut his utilities, or that we just didn't close up the chimney and close up the wall and send back all of those dangerous fumes back over to his side and then possibly cause a fire and explosion on his side of the house, which once again was attached to our side. So definitely was not going to do that. But I really appreciate that was something that he understood, that we went out of our way to make the least inconveniences for everybody else in our neighborhood. But still something that we are working our way through. In addition to that, we had one tenant move out that definitely needed some work because they had lived there for quite some time. So not just replacing that tenant, but also making sure that we're making those updates to that property. And then remember, we now move. So not only do we still have the rehab going on in the house that we are now currently living in, but we also are updating the unit that we have been living in for the past few years and now have to get that back on the market. So we have 3 different rehabs going on. We have this chimney utility issue. We are trying to move, which usually in life is just stressful enough. Being pregnant right now, I have to say, I just want my kitchen done. It is very difficult when I feel like I need to eat a snack every other hour to not be able to have access to a kitchen. So we are hoping to finally progress in that space so we can get those things moving and get those things on point. But with all of that stress, I have to say, one, I am still incredibly grateful because it is simply the process of the business that we're running. It is being a landlord. I still am getting calls about either a maintenance issue from one of our other properties or hearing from tenants. We have lease renewals coming up. All of those different things that we still do within our business, we still have to continue to do. But right now, there is just a lot more tacked on. Any of those things on their own would be stressful enough. But now here in combination, it has just been a kind of a different level. But it is something that I am grateful to have these problems. I am grateful that over the years, this business has supported us to be able to be full-time real estate investors. I don't have to worry about clocking in, clocking out of a 9-to-5 job with all of these other problems going on. I can be here, I can handle them, I can go through them. And I also know that they're time limited. So here are the 3 strategies that I have been using to help navigate my way through this and make sure that these are just going to be those time limited opportunities, so that way we can move forward and get back to a place of peace within our real estate portfolio. First thing that I always like to start with is that communication. We have a lot of moving pieces here between the 3 different rehabs that are going on, between how this move is being coordinated, between utility companies, insurances, liabilities, between tenants, all of those different pieces. It's incredibly important to make sure to have that communication open. I normally am a very big fan of time blocking in general. That is something that my entire calendar explains. These are the things that I was supposed to be doing during these times. These are the things that I'm doing during these times. So I'm not just running around feeling like I am totally lost or totally having to chase something. Within that, one of the things that I have done and added to my calendar is also time to make sure that I can respond to people, and that I can either make calls that I need to, respond to calls, respond to text messages, emails, and I've really added a little bit of extra time to my calendar to be able to answer everybody. So then that way I can make sure to the best of my ability that everybody that is doing work or supporting in these steps right now is on the same page, understands what is being worked on, and therefore is making progress. And those are things that I need to continuously stay on top of and check into. Even when I still had my 9-to-5 job, that would still be something that I would need to be able to do to make sure that people are doing their own roles. It does not matter if you manage yourself, if you use a property manager, or what that looks like, but making sure to get updates, making sure to communicate, making sure that expectations are understood, and what the goal of a specific project of or a time of will make all the difference. So that communication is the first place where I feel like there's a key, okay? The second thing that I have done within this, when you have a lot of different moving pieces on, especially when you have competing priorities and even competing emergencies in certain situations here, is to make sure that you really understand that project management. For me, it comes down to really having a good project management tool. I personally love Asana as a software system, and I also love a lot of the features and different apps that I can use on my iPhone to help keep in order all of the little missing pieces. It is a lot to know which crew is going to which property on which day and which project's going to be there and what service provider is coming on what day at what time and what needs to be ordered or what needs to be installed or what needs to be returned. And all of those different pieces, what I really like is I can put those into that project management tool. I can assign them to different people to be done. I can put due dates on them. I can attach links to them. I can put follow-up questions there. I can check in on the progress of things. So for right now, even with all the craziness that's happening, it's a great way for me to continue to be able to minimize the stress and the amount of things that I need to hold within my own head throughout this time, because I don't want to make sure that any of these things fall through the cracks. I want to make sure that this is something that we are progressing in the most time efficient, stress efficient, and cost efficient ways as we move forward. The third thing that I still am refusing to give up during this time is some space for my husband and I to still breathe, to still be able to take time for us. If you've been listening to the podcast for a while, you know that my husband and I are very avid baseball and softball players. I, once again, now being 8 months pregnant, really not exactly playing softball or moving too much these days, but my husband is still playing baseball. That is something he started to feel a little bit guilty about doing just because we have so many other things on our plates, and was kind of saying, hey, but this takes up, half a day, a full day, to be able to go out there and be able to play and to be able to do those things. And I told him that I actually didn't want to change that. I felt like, one, that was still a time for us to connect. That was still time for us to be able to have that space and to take a break from all of these projects and the other 1,000 things that we need to do. But it also reminds me of why we're doing all of these things, right? The whole reason that we're investing is for the financial freedom, is for this time freedom, is to be able to enjoy the things that we want in our lives. And if at any point in time you feel that you are investing in real estate and you feel so stressed, so pressured, and to be honest, this isn't even a real estate thing, this is kind of anything in life, if you start to not enjoy it, what's the point of doing it anymore? There's really none. So we need to be able to have those breaks. Stress, I'm sorry, that's part of being an adult. But when you're taking on these elective decisions, that now are causing added stress, added cost, added time, you have to make sure that you don't lose hope of the why you're doing it. So to me, still being able to say, you know what, it's going to be okay. We can take a few hours off every single week to just be able to go sit in the park for me, and for him to go out there and do something he loves and play a game of baseball is still totally worth it. None of us can work 24/7, can be awake 24/7, could be on the go 24/7, could be solving problems 24/7. We all need a little bit of time to sit back, to refresh, and that's what actually makes us stronger to be able to move forward. So I want to encourage you to be able to think about how you can still fit in your goal, your why, your purpose into these stressful times within real estate. And as a reminder, it's not always going to be like this. This too shall pass. In a few weeks on here, I'm going to be sharing about how these projects were done. I'm probably going to be able to laugh about it a little bit. I'll be able to create some good memories from all of this. And that's why I love being able to document what I'm going through our podcast here. But I know in a few weeks, this will calm down. We will be past these. There'll be some other thing that'll pop up, or we will be allowed to have just another couple quiet weeks, months, whatever that may look like within our portfolio, where things will be running smoothly again, thanks to systems and processes we've already put into place. So those are my tips for today. Thank you very much for tuning into today's episode of the Lady Landlords podcast. If you have not, do make sure that you hit that subscribe button, whether you're listening to us on a podcast or if you are watching us over on YouTube. Thank you very much for joining me there. Also, do make sure that if you are not in the Lady Landlords Facebook community, you go join us there. We're going to be doing a workshop coming up later this month all about creative financing and different ways that will get you out of that buy and save cycle that I hear so many of our lady landlords are stuck in. If you'd like some information to be able to join that workshop, please do make sure to put a CF down in the comments, and I will give you that link so you can register and come join our community. Thank you so much, and I will see you next week for the next episode of the Lady Landlords podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Lady Landlords podcast. If you're feeling stuck in your real estate investing journey, visit lady-landlord.com to book a 15-minute orientation call with me and see if you're ready to join our mentorship program. Or you can subscribe to our newsletter and join our Facebook group for exclusive real estate investing tips and offers. Invest with confidence. Become a Lady Landlord today.